For as long as we remember, we've told the story of human progress as a straight ascent from caves to cities, from sparks to circuits, from darkness to understanding. But what if history doesn't move forward at all? What if it turns endlessly, like the hands of a clock older than civilization itself? Not a clock of metal or gears, but one forged from oceans, fire, ice, and time. Through every age, Earth has breathed, rising and falling in cycles of creation and collapse. Every few thousand years, that balance breaks. Glaciers vanish, continents drift, fire rains from the sky, and everything we've built is erased, swallowed by silence. When calm returns, the survivors awaken, believing they are the first to walk the earth. But they are not the first. They are only the latest. The ancients once knew this pattern by heart. Their myths whispered it across continents. The rhythm of a world that dies and is born again. In the East, it was the Yuga cycle, a cosmic wheel turning through golden, silver, bronze, and iron ages, each ending in chaos before renewal. In Mesoamerica, it was the 5 suns, 5 worlds destroyed and remade, each claimed by water, wind, fire, or darkness. In Sumer, it was written that kingship descended from the heavens, that divine rulers reigned for ages beyond imagination, until one phrase ended it all. Then the flood swept over, different languages, same message: the world begins, the world ends, the world begins again. In recent years, a few voices have dared to suggest that these myths weren't just allegories, but memories, echoes of a truth buried beneath the ice. Among them, geologist and researcher Randall Carlson has mapped scars of cataclysm carved into the earth itself, the scablands of Washington, not sculpted by slow rivers, but by floods of unimaginable force. The fields of shattered rock in Canada and Montana, scattered by torrents that once moved faster than hurricanes. His data points to a single global upheaval, roughly 12,800 years ago, a violent interruption that marked the boundary between two worlds. Writer and researcher Graham Hancock followed this trail, proposing that this event, known as the Younger Dryas Impact, was more than geological, it was civilizational. In his works Magicians of the Gods and Ancient Apocalypse, he suggests that an advanced culture predating recorded history was wiped out almost overnight when fragments of a comet struck the northern ice sheets. The result was firestorms, floods, and 1,000 years of cold, the last great reset, an extinction remembered by later civilizations as the Great Flood. For years, mainstream science dismissed such claims, but evidence has begun to shift. Ice cores, sediment layers, and traces of platinum, iridium, and nanodiamonds reveal that something extraordinary happened. Beneath Greenland's ice lies a massive crater, a silent scar from a cosmic collision. Across North America, a thin layer of soot marks a continent consumed by flame. The radiocarbon record tells the same story. Temperatures crashed almost instantly, plunging the world into a new ice age. Carlson's data is the geology. Hancock's narrative is the memory. Together, they paint a haunting image, a planet that resets itself every 12 millennia, each cycle ending in chaos and beginning again in silence. Modern science, in its own way, is starting to recognize the same rhythm. Geologists trace it in the thin, dark lines of stone that mark abrupt transitions every 12,000 years. Astrophysicists detect it in the sun's path through clouds of cosmic dust and radiation. Even climate records echo with this strange pulse, a heartbeat that repeats through deep time. It's as if the Earth itself keeps time, and we've simply forgotten how to listen. The ancients may have understood what we are only beginning to rediscover. Carlson calls it Earth's catastrophic clock, a natural cycle of upheaval driven by cosmic forces, orbital shifts, solar bursts, and debris from passing comets. Hancock calls it the memory of the flood. Both warn of the same truth. The past wasn't primitive, it was erased. There are whispers that our ancestors tried to warn us, that they built calendars aligned with the stars, temples that mark the rising of forgotten suns, and myths encoded with sacred numbers, 12,000 years, 26,000 years, cycles within cycles. Perhaps they didn't fear the end itself, but the forgetting, because when we lose the rhythm of the world, we are unprepared when it begins again. Maybe this is why pyramids, temples, and stone circles all point to the same constellations, why ancient monuments seem to count something greater than days or seasons. Perhaps they were tracking the same thing we have ignored, the slow ticking of the Earth's forgotten clock. They may have known that everything, every empire, every sea, every breath, belongs to the same eternal pulse. Tonight, we begin to follow that truth. We'll trace the scars of catastrophe carved into stone, read the myths that survived the fire, and listen for the pulse beneath it all, the heartbeat of a planet that remembers more than we dare imagine. Because somewhere beneath our feet, beneath our history and our noise, the Earth still keeps its time, and the hand of that ancient clock may be about to move once more. The question is not whether the cycle will turn again, but whether we will remember it when it does. Beneath our feet lies the oldest memory on Earth, an archive that needs no ink, no words, and no library. The planet remembers everything. Every flood, every flyer, every long winter of ice and silence. Each layer of stone, each band of sediment, is a page in the diary of time itself. When we dig into the ground, we are not simply unearthing resources. We are opening chapters of forgotten ages, written in the language of rock. To the untrained eye, a stone is just a stone. But to those who listen, it speaks. Within layers of sandstone, shale, and frozen ice lie faint, dark lines, thin as the wrinkles on an ancient face, each marking a moment when the world changed beyond imagination. Across continents, scientists have uncovered these recurring dark bands rich in soot and iridium, an element rare on Earth, but common in meteorites. They call them black mats, and they appear with eerie regularity, roughly every 12,000 years, as if the planet itself inhales and exhales between life and destruction. In Greenland's deep ice cores, grains of dust from a time when the sky burned still linger. Embedded within that frozen archive are traces of platinum, proof of a massive cosmic impact around 12,800 years ago, the event known as the Younger Dryas. Across North America, scientists have discovered millions of microscopic glass beads called microtectites, formed when Earth's surface melted in an instant. In caves of Spain, ancient pollen was turned to charcoal, evidence of global fires that scorched forests from horizon to horizon. And in the frozen tundra of Siberia, mammoths have been found locked in permafrost, flowers still in their mouths, frozen in the very breath of their last moment. The story is always the same. Fire from above, then ice from below. A wave of heat and radiation ignited the planet, followed by centuries of cold and darkness. The Younger Dryas winter lasted more than 1,000 years, and when it ended, the ice vanished with astonishing speed. Seas rose hundreds of feet, rivers shifted and deltas disappeared. Entire coastlines redrew themselves, as if the world had been wiped clean. Humanity stepped into a new age, a reset Earth, reshaped and reborn. But this was not a one-time event. The deeper we read into the geological record, the clearer the pattern becomes. Every 12 to 13,000 years, something triggers a sudden global shift: freezing or fire, floods or volcanic storms, extinctions or the reversal of the magnetic poles. At 24,000, 36,000, 50,000 years, the pattern repeats, too precise, too rhythmic to be coincidence. It is as if the Earth moves to the beat of an unseen metronome, a clock whose hands sweep in millennia instead of minutes. Some of these cycles can be traced to the predictable dance of the planet itself. The tilt of Earth's axis, the wobble of its rotation, what science calls precession, and the slow drift of its orbit, known as the Milankovitch cycles. These cosmic rhythms control how sunlight touches the world, deciding the ages of ice and warmth. But others strike too fast, too violently, as though something beyond the planet flips a hidden switch. Magnetic reversals, solar superstorms, encounters with dense clouds of interstellar dust, all could serve as triggers, hurling the planet from stability into chaos. In the layered memories of magnetic rock, scientists have found proof that Earth's magnetic field has reversed hundreds of times. When it does, the invisible shield that protects us from solar radiation weakens drastically, leaving the surface exposed to waves of charged particles from the sun. And in recent centuries, something unsettling has begun again. The magnetic field is weakening. The North Magnetic Pole, once meandering slowly, now races across the Arctic, more than 40 kilometers a year, 10 times faster than before. It is a small but undeniable tremor in the gears of the planet's magnetic clock, Life itself seems to follow this same pulse. Roughly every 12 to 13,000 years, there is a surge of extinction, a clearing of the stage before a new act begins. The last great shift ended the reign of mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant sloths. Earlier ones wiped away coral forests and entire marine worlds. Evolution, it seems, does not flow gently forward. It leaps after every collapse. Even the continents respond. Tectonic plates stir, volcanoes awaken, mountains rise, and glaciers retreat. Oceans swell, swallowing land, continents twist into new shapes, as if the Earth itself breathes out and remakes its own face. Every cycle redraws the map of the planet. What once was mountain becomes island. What once was desert becomes sea, and beneath the waves, we find what might be echoes of civilizations erased by the last great flood. Stepped terraces near Yonaguni in Japan, mysterious geometric foundations off Cuba, and concentric formations hidden near Egypt's desert rim. They stand as quiet testaments to worlds that may have come before ours. Cities claimed by the ocean when the ice melted, and the sea reclaimed the land. If there were civilizations before, their voices now lie buried in coral and silt, their names forgotten, their stories erased. Yet Earth's memory is not only one of destruction, it is also one of renewal. After every extinction, forests return, rivers carve new paths, and life rises again from silence. The planet does not fear endings, it depends on them. Each cataclysm is a cleansing breath before creation begins anew. Today, we read these memories not through myth, but through machines, satellites, radiocarbon dates, isotope scans, and magnetic maps. The Earth speaks in data now, but the message is the same one our ancestors tried to tell. Every cycle, every pulse, every collapse follows a rhythm. The planet keeps time, even when we forget how to count it. Each black layer beneath our feet is a page of warning. Each shift in the magnetic field is a heartbeat. Each extinction a reminder that nothing endures forever. Not species, not empires, not even seas. The geological record doesn't predict the future. It only reminds us that another turn of the wheel is inevitable. Somewhere in the deep machinery of the planet, the next cycle is already building. Heat beneath the crust, fire in the sky, ice waiting in the shadows. The clock never stops. It never has. And when it strikes again, as it always does, Earth will begin another chapter in its endless story of destruction and rebirth. The only question that remains is whether we will survive long enough to remember this time, or whether we too will fade, another thin black line in the memory of the Earth. Now automatically continuing to part 3, the Great Flood, the last reset. Every civilization carries a memory of water, of a flood that came without warning, a wall of ocean and silence that erased everything known. It doesn't matter where the story begins, in the deserts of Sumer, the mountains of Peru, the temples of India, or the jungles of the Maya, everywhere, the same story returns. The world drowned, and only a few survived to begin again. For centuries, scholars dismissed these tales as metaphors, moral lessons, or symbols of divine punishment. But the deeper we dig, the more we discover that the memory of a great flood is carved not only into myth, but into the planet itself. Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age ended, the Earth changed in an instant. Temperatures soared within decades. Glaciers that had smothered continents began to collapse, and the oceans surged hundreds of feet higher. Rivers swelled into monsters, and entire coastlines disappeared. It was not one flood, but many waves of destruction that erased entire worlds. In the ice of Greenland and Antarctica, scientists have found a sharp boundary marking that transformation. Within those frozen layers, dust and ash reveal a sudden rise in heat, an explosive event that defies the slow pace of natural climate change. Across North America, the meltwater from retreating ice carved vast canyons, sculpted the scablands of Washington, and gouged the path of the St. Lawrence. The sea rose so swiftly that ancient coasts vanished beneath it. For early humans, the world must have seemed to dissolve overnight. Valleys becoming seas, mountains turning into islands, animals disappearing, storms blackening the sky. When the survivors reached higher ground, they carried one memory with them, a story of terror and water that would echo across thousands of years. In Mesopotamia, it became the tale of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest written works in history. A man named Utnapishtim is warned by the gods to build a great boat before a divine flood consumes the earth. When the waters recede, his vessel rests upon a mountain, and he releases birds to seek dry land. The same tale repeats in every culture. Noah in the Hebrew story, Deucalion in Greece, Manu in India, different names, same truth. The world drowned, and the survivors began again in silence. But what was this flood really? Modern geology points to a chain of cataclysms at the end of the Younger Dryas. Comet fragments or massive airbursts that shattered the ice sheets of the northern hemisphere. The sudden melt unleashed torrents of fresh water into the oceans, triggering violent storms and shifting Earth's crust beneath the immense new weight. Imagine an ocean rushing across continents, carrying forests, animals, and cities with it. To those who witnessed it, it would have seemed as if the heavens themselves had fallen. Traces of this deluge remain everywhere. Beneath the Black Sea, researchers have found an ancient shoreline 100 meters below the surface, proof that the sea we know today was once fertile land drowned around 70 off the coasts of India and Japan. Sonar scans reveal submerged ruins, stone paths and temples swallowed by the tide. Near the Bahamas, the mysterious Bimini Road stretches across the seafloor, its limestone blocks align too perfectly to be coincidence. They are all fragments of the same event, the day the world was reset. Core samples from the Gulf of Mexico tell the same story. A layer of ash and clay marks an enormous firestorm followed by flooding. In the fossil record, species vanish from one stratum to the next. Mammoths, mastodons, giant bison, saber-toothed cats, erased in a single stroke. The flood myths, it seems, were never metaphors. They were records, memories of the last global cataclysm, retold and mythologized, so the next generations would not forget. The Sumerians wrote of a divine flood sent to cleanse the earth. The Maya spoke of 4 previous worlds destroyed by water and flame. The Egyptians remembered Zep-Tepi, the first time, when the Nile rose and consumed the land. Every version carries the same warning. Civilizations rise, and then the waters return. And yet, not everything was lost. As the seas swallowed their cities, survivors carried fragments of knowledge, of stars, of crops, of geometry, across the world. They became the foundation of what would follow. The flood was not only an ending, it was a bridge between worlds. Some researchers believe this final cataclysm even altered the planet's magnetic field. The sudden shift of water and mass may have tilted Earth's axis, changing the orientation of the sky itself. Myths remember this too, tales of the heavens turning, of the sun rising where it once set, of stars rearranging their paths. The world after the flood was new, its climate strange, its gods silent, its constellations unfamiliar. It was, quite literally, a new. Imagine standing at that edge, watching the horizon, swallowed by a moving wall of ocean, hearing the thunder of creation and destruction in a single breath, realizing that every name, every city, every dream would be gone by dawn. And yet, from that silence, humanity began again. They lit fires on new shores, looked up at the same stars, and carried their stories forward, not to glorify gods, but to remember what happens when the cycle turns. The flood was not just an ancient myth, it was the last great tick of Earth's forgotten clock. The moment when one world ended and another began. We call it myth because we are afraid to remember how fragile we truly are, but the rocks, the ice, and the oceans have not forgotten. The waters came, and they will come again. The proof of these encounters sleeps in stone and ice. Spanning North America, researchers uncovered a thin band rich in soot and nanodiamonds, tiny crystals born only under crushing pressure and extreme heat, dated to about 12,800 years ago. That layer aligns with the onset of the Younger Dryas and the abrupt disappearance of Ice Age megafauna. In the same stratum lie microscopic glass spherules, beads born in moments when the air itself turned to fire. For years, many dismissed a celestial strike as fantasy, yet the pattern refused to fade. The firestorms, the melted glass, the black mats, the global plunge into cold. It was the unmistakable mark of an event from beyond our world, vast enough to bend the path of Earth's history. One fragment is thought to have slammed into what is now Greenland, leaving a crater nearly 20 meters wide hidden beneath the ice. Another, perhaps greater, may have detonated in the atmosphere, lighting continents and vaporizing forests. The blast would have dwarfed modern weapons, unleashing enough energy to set half a hemisphere ablaze. Shockwaves raced around the globe. Winds howled faster than hurricanes. For weeks the sky glowed red with smoke and dust. Daylight dimmed, the stars went dark, and then came the long winter, 1,000 years of ice and silence. Earth, it seems, has crossed this fire more than once. Geological layers record impact horizons not only from 12,800 years ago, but also near 26,000, 38,000, and beyond, each separated by roughly the same span. These are scars of recurring meetings, as though the planet passes a cosmic firing line on a reliable schedule. Some astronomers suggest these episodes trace back to the path of a vast, unseen comet, a long-period wanderer that sheds fragments as it nears the sun, scattering destruction across the inner system. Others argue the entire solar system oscillates through the galactic plane every 12 millennia or so, stirring ancient clouds of debris that then rain upon Earth. Whatever the trigger, the cadence remains. The sky keeps its own time, and the Earth moves in step. Across the ages, people looked upward for signs that this clock was turning. The ancients did not fear the stars so much as they studied them. They followed the patterns of comets, the procession of constellations, the measured dance of planets. The Great Pyramid of Giza aligns with Orion's belt and the pole star of its era, as if to honor a celestial rhythm, not a mortal one. The makers of Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe set stones toward specific risings, perhaps to remember the day the heavens fell. To them, the sky was not distant or gentle, it was alive, and when it moved, the world moved with it. In many traditions, the destroyer from the sky was more than rock or ice. It wore a name. The Sumerians called it Nibiru, the star of crossing. The Egyptians spoke of the Eye of Ra, sending fire to cleanse the earth. In Hindu texts, it was the weapon of the god Shiva, a celestial flame that ends one age so another can begin. Even the Bible preserves the memory, fire and brimstone raining from above, the sky rolling back like a scroll, and afterward a new heaven and a new earth. These are not random dreams, they are the language our ancestors used to describe what they had witnessed. Encounters so vast they burn themselves into human memory. Through tens of thousands of years, through spoken stories and sacred lines, the same warning was carried forward. The cycle will turn again, and when it does, it will descend not from the sea, but from the stars. Today we look up with instruments instead of omens. We chart near-Earth asteroids, log comets, and run impact simulations. We know that events like the one at the end of the Ice Age are statistically rare, but not impossible. We know small fireballs strike the atmosphere daily and fade harmlessly. And we know, with quiet unease, that space still holds travelers far larger than any we've yet found. For all our measurements, the sky remains mysterious. If there is a cosmic rhythm to catastrophe, we may already be entering its next phase. Dust within the solar system thickens, meteor showers intensify, the sun itself shifts toward greater activity. The same signs that once frightened ancient priests now appear again, this time registered by satellites instead of seers. But whether we speak in myth or in mathematics, the truth is unchanged. The heavens and the earth move together in time, and when the fire returns, it will not are. The ancients called it the purifying flame, the breath of the gods. To the planet, it is simply another beat in its endless cycle. Fire falls, life falters, silence follows, and then the earth breathes again. Invisible and ever-present, Earth's magnetic field surrounds us like an unseen ocean. It steers compasses, shields life from the sun's radiation, and holds back the chaos of space. Yet this guardian is not constant. It flickers, weakens, and at times flips completely. When it shifts, the consequences ripple across the globe, from strange skies to failing species. The magnetic field is the planet's pulse, and through deep time, that pulse has stumbled more than once. Every child learns that a compass points north, but few realize that north is not fixed. Over the last century, the North Magnetic Pole has drifted thousands of kilometers from the Canadian Arctic towards Siberia, now moving faster than at any time in recorded history. What was once a slow meander has become a sprint of more than 40 kilometers each year. At the same time, measurements show magnetic strength sliding downward, nearly 10% per century. Something deep beneath us is changing. The The source lies in the planet's molten heart, 3,000 kilometers below our feet. Iron and nickel churn in a convective dance, a liquid dynamo weaving the electromagnetic shell that protects the biosphere. But this dynamo is unruly. Currents twist, fold and turn, sending ripples that rise through the mantle and alter the field above. When the disorder grows too great, the system flips. North becomes south, south becomes north. This is geomagnetic reversal. It has happened hundreds of times in Earth's past, most recently around 780,000 years ago. The Brunhes-Matayama reversal, evidence from lava flows, seafloor sediments, and tiny magnetic grains, suggests the change is neither gentle nor necessarily slow. In some places, the switch may have unfolded within decades, perhaps within a single lifetime. Imagine ancient watches if compasses had existed then, needles spinning, auroras blooming in latitudes that had never known them, the sky glowing with unfamiliar light as the shield faltered. When the field weakens, solar and cosmic radiation batter the atmosphere, ozone thins, electrical storms grow fierce. Satellite records and ice core isotopes hint that these windows coincide with spikes in mutation, extinctions and climatic upheavals. It is as if each reversal acts like a reset, shaking delicate systems and forcing new adaptations. The magnetic clock, like every gear in Earth's grand mechanism, keeps its own rhythm of ending and renewal. Some researchers think we're drifting into another such phase now. The South Atlantic anomaly, a broad region of weakened magnetism, has expanded rapidly, stretching from South America to Africa. Spacecraft passing overhead glitch and fail as radiation leaks through the thinning shield. Meanwhile, the global field appears to have dropped by nearly 20% since the 19th century, a pattern that often precedes a full reversal. No one can say when, but the tempo is quickening. For ancient cultures, these invisible changes were read in the sky. Auroras, rivers of green, red and violet, were taken as omens. The Norse named them the Bifrost, a bridge between worlds. Chinese chronicles told of fiery dragons, while Inuit stories spoke of spirits dancing along the horizon. What they could not know was that these lights signaled the breathing of the planet's magnetic heart. As the curtains drifted far from the poles, something within the Earth was stirring. During a reversal, the sky itself would seem remade. Auroras could ripple over the tropics. Night might glow like an endless dawn. Compass bearings would lose meaning. Creatures that migrate by magnetism, birds, whales, turtles, would be disoriented. Their invisible maps scrambled, and far below, molten iron would keep churning, redrawing the lines of the planet's magnetic soul. The rock record hints that reversals often coincide with other upheavals, volcanic outbursts, sharp coolings or warmings, even mass die-offs. The link appears too frequent to ignore. Some propose that a collapsed field lets cosmic radiation carve deep into the atmosphere, rewriting climate chemistry. Others suggest internal shifts in the core can unsettle the crust, awakening eruptions and quakes. Whatever the chain, the outcome repeats. A world reshaped, ecosystems erased, new life rising where the old fell. In 1859, a smaller episode offered a warning of what such forces can do. The Carrington event, the fiercest solar storm on record, struck with enough fury to set telegraph wires ablaze and paint equatorial skies with auroras. If a storm like that hit now, in an age of satellites, power grids, and a web of electronics wrapped around civilization, the damage would strain imagination. Under a weak field, the impact would be amplified, broader reach, deeper harm. More and more, scientists see magnetic cycles not as random noise, but as part of the same cosmic rhythm that drives floods, fires, and ages of ice, an inner gear in Earth's great clock. The geomagnetic heartbeat may rise and fall in resonance with solar moods and the planet's orbital motions. When the sun grows volatile and the field slackens, the system resets, a synchronization between star and world that has echoed for eons. Perhaps the ancients sensed this bond. In Egyptian temples, obelisks were set to the solstices, marking not only time but balance between heaven and earth. In Sumer, old records speak of gods turning the poles of the world. In Vedic hymns we hear that the earth trembles when the directions reverse. These are poetic portraits of magnetic inversion, mythic terms for a real observable force. Today we measure what they could only name. Satellites, trace, magnetic drift. Maps chart anomalies. Models render invisible lines of force threading through space. And still, despite our instruments, we stand before the same enigma. The Earth's heart beats, but we do not yet know why the rhythm changes. We can only listen, record, and be ready. When the next inversion comes, be it a century or 1,000 years from now, it will not be an apocalypse so much as a transformation. Some species will vanish, others will adapt. Our machines will falter, new systems will rise. The sky will shimmer in colors no living person has seen, and deep within the molten dark, the planet will turn once more, reversing, resetting, remembering. Because the magnetic field is more than a shield. It is memory in motion, the living record of a world that never stops changing. And when it flips again, Earth will do as it always has. Erase, renew, and begin the next chapter in its endless cycle of cataclysm. Every heartbeat of life on Earth begins with the sun. Its light stirs the oceans, breathes through forests, and warms the blood of every creature that ever lived. But the star that grants life can also take it away. For the ancients, this dual nature was obvious. The sun was creator and destroyer, a radiant god that could bless or annihilate with the same hand. Modern science echoes the old whisper: the sun is not constant. It is a roiling sphere of plasma, seething with magnetic storms. Beneath the bright surface, rivers of energy twist and tangle, raising loops of fire the size of worlds. When those loops snap, they hurl solar flares, colossal bursts of charged particles that tear across space at near light speed. If Earth lies in their path, the sun's invisible hand reaches out and changes everything. Roughly every 11 years, the sun completes a magnetic flip. At solar maximum, its face blooms with sunspots, bruises of magnetic turmoil, and flares erupt with ferocity. A single major outburst can rival billions of nuclear detonations. When such storms strike Earth, they batter the magnetosphere, compressing it, twisting it, sometimes punching straight through. Auroras blossom, satellites falter, power grids hum with hidden currents. Yet, what we've seen in modern times are ripples compared to what the sun has done before. The Carrington event of 1859 offered a taste, a blinding flare, followed by a coronal mass ejection, 1 billion tons of plasma flung toward Earth. Telegraph systems sparked into flame, compasses whirled, auroras flared over Cuba and Hawaii. People woke at midnight, believing sunrise had come. If a storm of that scale arrived today, the harm to satellites, grids, and communications would be staggering. And even Carrington may have been small beside tempests preserved in older records. Tree rings and ice cores bear the marks of ancient solar fury. In 7074 CE, a sharp jump in carbon-14 hints at a storm perhaps 100 times stronger than Carrington. Similar traces appear near 93 CE, and deeper still across millennia. Scientists call them Miyake events, moments when the sun hurled radiation so intense it scarred the planet's chemistry. What sparked such outbursts remains uncertain. Are they singular superflares or peaks of cycles longer than the familiar 11-year rhythm? Some suspect the sun follows a hidden cadence, a grand heartbeat that crests roughly every 12,000 years, eerily in step with Earth's other catastrophes. The physics of these blasts are staggering. In a superflare, the sun's magnetic field knots upon itself like a coiled spring. When it releases, the detonation can outshine the galaxy for minutes. Torrents of high-energy protons rip through space, ionizing everything they touch. For Earth, such an onslaught would strip parts of the atmosphere, ignite global auroras, and could trigger cascading electrical failures that end the digital age overnight. Beyond the machines lies a deeper consequence: climate. When the sun sinks into prolonged calm, as during the Maunder minimum in the 17th century, the world responds. For decades, sunspots all but vanished, and the planet slipped into the Little Ice Age. Rivers froze, harvests failed, empires weakened. In contrast, during intervals of heightened solar output, glaciers retreat, storms gather strength, deserts expand. The sun is not a background actor in Earth's weather. It conducts the symphony. Some researchers argue that the great convulsions of prehistory, floods, extinctions, magnetic swings, may line up with episodes of solar hyperactivity when the sun's field tangles with Earth's currents surge through the air and crust. Lightning turns apocalyptic, volcanoes stir, and the biosphere's balance fractures. From the sun's vantage, these are ordinary adjustments, steady pulses in a star's long life. To us, it is the hand of fire that turns the clock of catastrophe. The ancients knew that hand well. In Egypt, the sun was Ra, the eye of the sky that voyaged through the underworld each night, and rose reborn at dawn. When angered, it sent its daughter Sekhmet to scorch the world. In Sumer, the same force was Utu, or Shamash, the judge looking down from heaven, punishing with flame. The Vedas speak of Surya's chariot drawing too near, its radiance unbearable. Even the Christian revelation ends with the sun gone black and the heavens shaking. Across every tradition, the meaning is the same. The sun's blessing can become its curse. Today, we watch the sun with fleets of machines. The Parker Solar Probe dives into the corona. The Solar Dynamics Observatory maps magnetic tempests. Satellites monitor every flicker. Yet all we know cannot restrain what the star decides to do. It is the solar system's ultimate metronome, keeping time in light and plasma. When it grows restless, every world hears its anger. As the next solar maximum approaches, the signs are already in view. Sunspots multiply, flares strengthen, satellites blink. Scientists warn we may be entering one of the most active phases in centuries. If Earth's magnetic field continues to thin, as trends suggest, our shield will be at its weakest, a perfect convergence. Inversion below, solar fire above, the spark for the next great reset. Perhaps that is how the last civilization fell. Not by war, not by plague, by light itself, a pulse from the star they revered, sweeping the horizon and wiping memory in a single flash. When the sky finally stilled, the survivors rebuilt, watching the sun with reverence and fear, whispering stories that would harden into myth. The sun has never been our enemy. It is the cadence of our existence, the luminous pendulum that marks each age. When it burns too fiercely, the world tightens. When it softens, life unfolds. The cycle endures, the clock keeps turning, and beyond every theory and belief, the sun waits to strike again, not in malice, but in the unending rhythm of creation and destruction. Long before lenses or satellites, before science had a name, people watched the heavens with an intensity we have forgotten. To them, the sky was alive. Each star had purpose, each planet a role, each sunrise a message. From Egypt's deserts to Central America's forests, they measured the rhythm of the heavens, as if they were listening for something, as if trying to remember. Modern scholars call their monuments temples. Perhaps they were more instruments of time, devices in stone, story and number, built not to adore the gods, but to track the clock of cataclysms. They preserved a secret we are only starting to recognize. Earth moves to a grand cosmic rhythm, and every few thousand years the cycle resets. In the highlands of southern Mexico, the Maya raised pyramids, aligned to the paths of Venus and the sun. Their long count calculates across vast spans, not as a straight line, but as an infinite loop. Each era, each backturn, ends in destruction and renewal. The last recorded transition by their inscriptions closed a great cycle of 5,025 years, itself part of patterns expanding into tens of thousands. The Maya did not dread the end. They prepared for rebirth. Every age must die so the next can live. In the East, India's sages spoke of the yugas, great epochs unfolding in repeating turns. Satya Yuga, the golden age of truth, followed by Treta, then Dvapara, and finally Kali Yuga, the dark age of ignorance, when catastrophe cleanses the world. A full sequence spans 4,320,000 years, and within it smaller subcycles tick like inner gears. Even today, the Yuga framework mirrors Earth's precessional wobble, roughly 25,920 years per rotation, quartered into rises and declines. It is as though ancient astronomers encoded the geometry of the sky into parable, turning celestial mechanics into moral time. To the Sumerians, among our earliest known civilizations, time itself descended from the stars. Their tablets say, when kingship came down from heaven, it was in Eridu. The Sumerian king list records rulers who reigned not for years or centuries, but for tens of thousands, until a single line ends it all. Then the flood swept over. To modernize, the numbers look impossible. Perhaps they were not lifespans, but cycles. immense measures keyed to planetary motions or to the return of a celestial body they named Nibiru, the crossing star. Whether literal or symbolic the message holds, civilizations rise beneath a steady sky and fall when the heavens change. In Egypt, the priests of Heliopolis spoke of Zep-Tepi, the first time, a golden age before the deluge when gods walked the earth and the stars held perfect order. Every temple, pyramid and obelisk echoed that lost alignment. The Great Pyramid is not merely a tomb, it is a clock, aiming at true north, aligned to the cardinal points, and keyed to Orion's belt. Even now it rivals modern precision. Within its measures lie astronomical constants, the precession of the equinoxes, the solar year's length, the curve of the planet itself. The builders were not guessing, they knew. Across the sea, the Dogon of West Africa tell of knowledge from Sirius, long before modern telescopes confirmed its hidden companion. Their lore of orbital cycles and stellar motion hints at a memory older than recorded history. Whether mythic or inherited from a forgotten culture, the Dogon account fits a global pattern. Fragments of advanced understanding carried through a flood of time. At the heart of these traditions is a single theme: repetition. The ancients saw time as a wheel, not a road. It did not run forward, it turned each revolution bringing ruin and rebirth. They watched the sky to know when the wheel would come around again. The Maya counted Venus. The Egyptians tracked the heliacal rising of Sirius. The Sumerians followed the paths of Jupiter and Mars. Separated by continents and languages, their markers point to one purpose: to anticipate the return of catastrophe. Even the Greeks kept the echo. Plato wrote that Earth periodically pours itself out, drowning cities and cultures, sparing only those on high ground to remember. He called these intervals the great years, governed by celestial motion. To him, Atlantis was not fantasy but memory, a record of the last turn of the wheel. Some researchers think ancient structures were made to survive the very disasters they foresaw. Megaliths at Baalbek, Sacsayhuaman, and Puma Punku. Stones weighing hundreds of tons appear built to endure quakes, floods, even fire from the sky. Their makers may have known that time is fragile, and that only stone could ferry a message into the next world. But time erodes all. Languages fade, symbols fracture. We forget how to read what is carved into Earth's bones. We call these works primitive, yet with all our machines we cannot easily move what they raised, nor rival their celestial accuracy. What if their purpose was not power or worship, but remembrance, a warning etched in granite? We were here before, beware the turning of the clock. Stand beneath the night and you see what they saw, a heaven that never rests. The same constellations drift, degree by degree, across a 26,000-year procession. To the ancients, that drift was sacred. Each star's position told where humanity stood in the cycle, rising, falling or nearing the edge. Perhaps the monuments were alarms, stone timekeepers ringing across ages. Each pyramid, each temple, each myth, a note in a forgotten symphony, reminding us the heavens repeat, and when they do, Earth will follow. The ancients did not forget. They encoded the truth in architecture, rite and tale, hoping that when the wheel turned again, someone would listen. The question now is whether we still can. Every continent carries ruins that seem older than the histories assigned to them. Stones too ancient, too exact, too silent to fit the story we are told. They rise from jungle and desert, and from the sea itself, as if the earth is remembering what it once concealed. Across these remnants, one question lingers: were there civilizations before us? Empires are raised not by fable, but by time. For the ancients, this was no riddle. They spoke plainly of worlds that came before. In Greece, Plato preserved Atlantis, an island realm beyond the Pillars of Heracles, now called the Strait of Gibraltar. In Timaeus and Critias, he describes a kingdom of wealth and order whose reach touched Egypt and Italy, until in a single day and night of misfortune, the island sank beneath the waves. For ages, readers dismissed his words as allegory. Yet Plato was specific: places, measures, even the sequence by which the sea devoured the land. He said Egyptian priests told the tale as record, not myth. Modern finds blur the boundary between legend and memory. Off Spain's coast, researchers have mapped circular forms under deep sediment, echoing Plato's concentric canals. In the Caribbean, Sonar has traced straight avenues and right angles buried in sand. Near the Bahamas, the Bimini Road runs nearly a kilometer along the seafloor, its limestone blocks arranged too deliberately to feel accidental. Each discovery is disputed, yet together they hint at a forgotten civilization that once bridged the Atlantic, perhaps lost to the same cataclysm that ended the Ice Age. Farther east lies another vanishing, Mu, the drowned land of the Pacific. Across Polynesia, Japan, and Mesoamerica, fragments tell of ancestral kingdoms swallowed by the sea, their survivors scattered. The basalt cities of Nan Madol in Micronesia, vast islets of prismatic stone, seem to echo those stories, poised on artificial platforms, empty and mute. In Central American memory, the god-king Quetzalcoatl is said to have come from the east after a flood, bearing knowledge of the stars. On a remote shore, the people of Rapa Nui carved titans, staring toward the horizon, as though watching for a home that never returned. The tale repeats in the Indian Ocean. Tamil lore remembers Kumari Kandam, a great southern land connecting India, Africa, and Australia, now drowned. Along the Andamans, coral ridges make terraces like the steps of lost coasts. Off Japan's Yonaguni, divers move along stepped platforms and corridors carved from bedrock, descending like roads of a sunken city. Some geologists call them natural, others point to angles, too like marks, and patterns too precise to dismiss. Across the world, from Caribbean shallows to Pacific trenches, a pattern emerges, ruins that seem to predate our written story, aligned to the heavens, raised from blocks so vast they defy simple answers. The Great Pyramid, long treated as the oldest marvel, now stands beside enigmas that may be older still. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, raised more than 11,000 years ago, long before writing, farming, or the wheel. Its makers shaped pillars weighing 20 tons, etched with animals that no longer roam the earth, then purposefully entombed the entire sanctuary under layers of soil, as if sealing it for those yet to come. What did they hope to protect it from? To many researchers, places like this are shards of a forgotten world culture, not a single empire, but a web of shared knowledge connected by trade routes and the night sky. The likeness between Egypt's pyramids, Mesopotamia's ziggurats, and the stepped temples of the Americas may not be accident. They share geometry, symbols, and alignments that point to the stars. The same constellations, Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades, return again and again in tales from peoples divided by oceans, as though all remembered the same sky, the same beginning, before the waters rose. Geology allows for this possibility. About 12,000 years ago, seas climbed more than 120 meters. Entire shelves at the edges of continents vanished. The Persian Gulf, once a lush valley, filled and became the sea we know. The Sunda Shelf, that linked Southeast Asia to Australia, sank beneath the Indian Ocean. The Doggerland Plains between Britain and Europe disappeared under the North Sea. Millions of square miles of livable coast were lost. If civilizations had grown along those shorelines, their cities would now be hidden under hundreds of feet of water, erased from our history, though not from the planet's memory. Survivors spread to new islands and continents, carrying fragments of what they knew. In Sumer, that inheritance became stories of divine kings arriving from the sea with the tools of civilization. In Egypt, it became the legend of Thoth, restoring balance after chaos. In the Andes, Viracocha rose from Lake Titicaca to teach farming, star lore, and stonework to a people who had forgotten. The gods in these accounts were not gods at all. They were messengers of memory, bearing embers from a world that had burned. If the ancients grasped the cycle of ruin, they likely grasped the necessity of renewal. Their tales of drowned lands were not only elegies for what had been lost, there were warnings for what would return. Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, Kumari Kandam, different names for one truth. Ours is not the first light to shine on this world, and it will not be the last. Each age assumes itself immortal until the clock turns. Then the ocean climbs, the stars shift, and the story begins again. Beneath the quiet of the sea, traces of those worlds persist. Sonar maps, magnetic anomalies, megaliths resting under coral, fragments of a single forgotten sentence. The earth remembers, even when we do not. And when time's tide recedes again, a future people may find our own cities drowned in mud and sand, and wonder whether their legends of a world before the flood were true. because the cycle does not end. The sea that buries also reveals. The waves that drowned Atlantis will one day uncover it. When they do, the ruins will tell, not of one lost kingdom, but of the rhythm that governs them all, the endless turning of Earth's forgotten clock. Every culture that ever watched the sky noticed something. The stars were not still. Night after night, year after year, the constellations drifted, slowly, certainly. The ancients named it the Great Year, the long turning of the heavens. They measured it in ages, each ruled by a different constellation, each announcing a new chapter in the world's life. This was not merely a calendar to them, it was the heartbeat of the cosmos, so vast that entire civilizations rose and fell between ticks. Today we call that motion the precession of the equinoxes, the gentle wobble of Earth's axis drawing a circle through the sky every 25,920 years. The cause is mechanical, the sun and moon tugging on Earth's bulged waist, but to ancient watchers it was divine. The slow drift of the stars was the turning of the cosmic wheel itself, from the Nile to the Ganges to the Andes. They built temples and stories to lock onto that rhythm, marking the ages like chapters in a universal book. When the sun rose in Leo, they called it the Age of the Lion, an era of fire, strength, and beginnings. Under Taurus, the Age of the Bull, came fertility, planting, and horned gods. With Gemini, the twins, came division and duality. With Aries, the ram, came conquest and empire. With Pisces, the fish, came faith and sacrifice. And now, as the sun slides toward Aquarius, the water-bearer, we stand once more at a threshold, between ages, between worlds, between cycles. To the ancients, these crossings were not symbols, they were upheaval. Every 12,000 to 13,000 years, half a precessional turn, Earth's tilt and orientation bring it into new alignments, with cosmic forces, different radiation fields, tides of galactic dust, shifting gravities. When the wheel turns, the balance between Earth and Sun changes, climate shifts, the magnetic shield falters, the clock resets. Modern astronomy is beginning to glimpse what the ancients intuited. The solar system does not drift through emptiness. It rides the Milky Way like a ship over swells, bobbing above and below the galaxy's mid-plane on a cycle of about 26,000 years. Each crossing of the dense central band brings increased cosmic rays and interstellar dust. This can nudge the sun's energy cycles, destabilizing its magnetism. Some researchers see in this galactic tide a reason for periodic bursts of solar activity, waves of comet fragments, and climate jolts recorded in Earth's past. The heavens are not silent, they breathe, and when they exhale, worlds change. Ancient monuments may record that breath. At Nabta Playa in Egypt's desert, a stone circle aligns with the rising of Orion's belt, and Sirius, the same stars later mirrored by the pyramid fields. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, towers trace the coils of Draco, fixed to the posture it held 12,000 years ago. Teotihuacan, in Mexico, lays out avenues as if modeling the planets themselves. These were not random design. They were observatories in stone, tuned to the sky's slow drift and to the moment of the next turn. In India, Vedic seers wove the same pattern into myth, ages of humanity, or yugas, each lasting thousands of years, and tied to the suns and stars measured. In this view, humanity rises toward insight, as Earth approaches one point in its precessional path, and falls into amnesia as it recedes, an endless swing between awakening and forgetting. The cycle was not only astronomical, but spiritual, the cosmos alive, its rhythm reflected in the rise and fall of human mind. The Greeks inherited the vision. Plato spoke of the perfect year, when all heavenly bodies return to their starting places, an ending and a beginning at once. The Stoics called it ekpyrosis, world fire, when the heavens realign and the cosmos renews itself in flame. In their thought, the stars themselves held a memory of destruction. When they reached their destined pattern, Earth would burn and from the ashes a new cycle would arise. Even now, science echoes the pattern. Ice ages that recur on scales of roughly 100,000 and 12,000 years, clusters of comet strikes and solar storms that correlate with changes in our system's orientation toward the galactic center. Our planet's journey through space is not random, it swings like a pendulum. With each arc, energy builds, until it breaks. Perhaps that is why so many ancient peoples treated the stars as living powers, guides, guardians, judges, They believed the sky could foretell disaster because disaster was written in its motion. For them, astrology was not superstition. It was survival. Read the sky, and you might be ready when the wheel turns. Yet in our age of instruments, we have stopped reading. We treat the heavens as scenery, not as the gears of a larger machine. We measure, but we do not feel. The ancients lacked our tools, but owned a patience we've lost. They watched not for days or decades, but for centuries, seeing changes only generations could track. In doing so, they saw the pattern we have forgotten. Perhaps that is why their stones endure. Rock does not forget as easily as flesh. When the next alignment comes, when the poles wander and the constellations take their places, those standing among the ruins may finally understand what their ancestors tried to say. The sky keeps the time, and every great cataclysm echoes a greater turning above. The cycle turns, the constellations drift, the equinox slides across the heavens, and somewhere in the quiet of space the hands of the cosmic clock prepare to strike again. The ancients saw it once, and left warnings in the stars. Whether we heed them will shape how the next age begins. Earth's story has never been a straight line. It turns in cycles, making and unmaking, flood and flame, silence and return. For ages these rhythms hid behind myth. Now science hears the same beat. The magnetic shield weakens, climate lurches, the sun grows restless. All signs point to one reality. Earth's clock is turning again. Our planet's magnetism, the unseen armor, is fading. The North Pole slides towards Siberia faster than at any time on record, while the South Atlantic anomaly spreads, letting radiation bite into the upper air. Satellites flicker, compasses stray. Deep in the molten core, currents writhe and hesitate, as if the world's heart skipped a beat. Above, the sun burns with unusual fervor. Each new solar cycle flares harder. Vast eruptions and coronal storms fly through space, sometimes straight at Earth, when waves of plasma collide with a thinning shield. Auroras bloom in unlikely skies. Power grids buzz, communications falter. The last time such storms struck at full force, telegraph lines caught fire. If it happened now, the global network that sustains our lives could go silent in minutes. Meanwhile, climate mimics the turmoil. Glaciers shrink, seas swell, seasons slip out of step. The Arctic warms fastest, reworking currents that stabilize the world for millennia. The Gulf Stream eases. Polar vortices split, drought and deluge trade places. Once these looked like separate problems, now they appear as parts of the same old pattern that has shaped Earth for millions of years. Quick resets every 12 to 13,000 years. Below our feet, the planet stirs. Volcanoes long quiet awaken. Earthquakes gather along ancient seams. The crust moves with the faint unease of a world preparing to shift. In deep time, such murmurs accompany transition. Earth breathes through upheaval, releasing pressure, clearing imbalance, beginning anew. Even the sky joins the rhythm. Comets return from the outer dark on long ellipses, brushing close as they did before prior ages. Meteor showers thicken. The solar system enters old streams of dust, the same rivers that may once have rained fire on an ice age Earth. To us it looks like coincidence. To the planet it is routine, the turning of its forgotten clock. The ancients knew this better than we do. They watched the sky not with curiosity but with remembrance. The Maya counted long cycles of creation and loss. The Vedas told of yugas, gold, silver, bronze, iron, ending always in renewal. The Hopi kept stories of worlds purified by flood and flame. The Egyptians guarded the memory of Zep Tepi, the first time when stars realigned and the world began again. They were not prophesying disaster, they were preserving memory. We have mislaid that memory. We built our cities on edges the sea will claim. We wove our lives into fragile webs of electricity and orbiting machines. We live as though Earth is steady and the sky safe. But the record in rocks, ice and legend says otherwise. The last time balance broke, continents drowned and countless species vanished. Life endured, smaller, humbler, reborn. The next reset will not announce itself with one blow. It will arrive as a sequence, a solar storm, a blackout, a shift in weather, a hush in the magnetic field. Step by step, the old balance will dissolve, and a new one will settle. To Earth, this is renewal. To us, it will feel like an ending. Yet the cycle is not punishment, it is rhythm. Flood cleanses, fire transforms, ice preserves. Every new civilization rises on the ruins of the last. The ancients raised monuments not to defeat time, but to speak through it. Pyramids tuned to stars, temples to solstices, reminders that we have been here before. What they feared most was not ruin, but amnesia, because forgetting is the truest extinction. When we forget the planet's rhythm, we misread the reset as chaos instead of renewal. Each age starts again in amnesia, until memory returns as myth, and the pattern is seen once more. Our technology is brittle. Beside stone, one solar storm could wipe centuries of data, yet memory survives in other forms. Story, art, the impulse to wonder. Every generation that looks up continues the lineage of remembrance. The next reset may already be underway. The planet's pulse grows louder. The signs multiply, but awareness is not fear. To remember the cycle is to prepare, not with panic, but with perspective. The ancients met their turns with reverence. They built for endurance, not convenience. They measured life by the constellations, not by profit. Perhaps it is time to learn from them again. Because one day, when the seas rise and the stars shift and our monuments crack, another people will walk our ruins. They will find what we left, satellites fallen like new constellations, stone streets buried in silt, our stories retold as legend, and they will ask as we do now, what unmade the world that came before? If this story speaks to you, if you believe our past holds the key to our future, walk with us as we reveal it, layer by layer, age by age. Subscribe, share, and keep the memory alive for history to sleep. Because somewhere beneath our feet, and high above our heads, the clock has already begun to move. Night is a river, and we are carried on it. Cities dim to embers. Screams go quiet. Above the rooftops and the dunes and the black water, the old constellations gather like elders around a fire. They have watched every turn, every flowering, every fall. They have seen temples rise from quarries and sink into silt. They have seen maps redrawn by ice, by ash, by the patient tide. They have watched us tell and retell the same story, with different names, different alphabets, different music in our voices. Tonight, they watch us again. If you listen closely, you can hear the planet breathe. You can hear the slow thunder of glaciers leaning into the sea, the hiss of sand migrating grain by grain, the crackle of auroras far beyond the horizon, our atmosphere singing with particles from a restless star. You can hear, if you lean even closer, something softer, the murmur of memory as it moves through us, a current older than language, ferrying images we did not live, and yet somehow recognize, a valley that is now an ocean, a sky that was full of fire, a people standing on a ridge, reading the heavens because there was nothing else left to read. We have inherited their questions, and perhaps something else, their duty. Not to force the world to be still, no age has ever managed that. But to go on remembering, to go on building small, durable places for truth to rest between storms. Imagine a room in the future. Its walls are not stone, they are paper-thin alloys printed from dust. A child stands there and asks a simple question. What came before us? The answer will not be a single monument or a single book. It will be a chorus. The sediments that kept the tally of fires, the ice that saved the ash of summers and the pollen of springs, the stars that kept turning, the math of their turning etched into rings of wood and rings of rock and rings of iron beneath the crust. The answer will be all of it together. And us, if we have the courage to leave something gentle and exact behind, we can. That is the secret hope running beneath the gravity of this tale. Cycles do not make us powerless. They give us a rhythm in which to act. Start close to home. There is a calendar in your sky. Learn it. Learn the phases of the moon, not as a symbol but as a clock that pulls at ocean and blood. Learn the rising and setting of the bright ones. Sirius in the dog days, Orion in winter, Venus at dawn like a shard of ice. Learn the solstices by the warmth in the air and the angle of shadows. Take your bearings at twilight without a compass. Teach a child to do the same, and you have returned one small current of memory to the sea. There is a map in your ground. Read it. Walk where the old water once stood. Beach ridges stranded miles inland, terraces like steps to forgotten coasts. Follow rivers to the places they break their banks in storms. Notice the patient work of their meanders and where they deposit their stories. Find bedrock and put your hand on it. That stone has survived countless resets. It will survive the next one. You can fix your mind to it like a nail to keep from being blown away. There is a discipline in your life. Practice it. Turn a part of your attention each day to endurance instead of speed. Plant trees with roots more stubborn than weather. Store a little water because you respect the element, not because you fear it. Learn a craft that does not go dark when the grid does. How to mend, how to grow, how to build a wall, plumb to the pull of the earth, how to use the sun with a mirror and a lens, how to read. We have called these skills old-fashioned. They are simply perennial. There is a music in your words. Tune it. Stories can be barbed or they can be braided. Braid yours, take the best of what science knows, the care with which it measures, and marry it to the patience of myth, the way it holds meaning in image, so it can be carried long distances without breaking. Speak carefully about what we know and what we do not. Avoid the arrogance that has humbled every age. Leave room for the next generation to add their verse, without tearing out yours. We are not the first to think this way. On a dry plateau high above a vanished lake, someone set 3 stones so that the winter sun would fall cleanly between them on the shortest day. In a forest no longer standing, someone aligned a ditch to the rising of a star that is now slightly out of place, because the earth has exhaled a little farther along its slow circle on a winded hill beyond the last farm. Someone buried a jar of grain and a broken tool, and a bead of blue glass and a tablet scratched with signs. None of these saved the world. All of them saved a thread. Threads become ropes when enough hands keep weaving. There is danger, yes. The magnet in the planet's heart falters and flares. The sun throws bright fists. The climate lurches. The crust groans and shifts its weight. But danger is not the only actor in the play. So is grace. So is choosing to be a good ancestor when you will never meet the children whose hands lift your message out of the dust. Picture a different kind of monument. Not colossal, not defiant, not pretending to be immortal, modest and exact. A short wall of dressed stone with a slit that frames the first star of evening on one day each year. A ring of markers that count the long breaths of the sky's procession over centuries. A garden built on contour lines, terraces hugging the hill. A reservoir shaded by trees that know drought and storm. A library that can be carried in a satchel. Plain words, careful drawings, the recipes of endurance. A school whose roof is a sundial, a home with windows made to invite winter light and reject summer blaze. Roof angle to drink rain. A courtyard to sleep beneath meteors on the one night each year. Your family promises to watch the sky together. And remember why. This is not retreat. It is reorientation. It is stepping back into conversation with the forces that outlast empires. When the cycle turns, and it will find you listening. It will find you awake. You do not have to choose between awe and action. You can let the vastness wash over you and still plant garlic in autumn, because you trust spring to exist. You can stand on a breakwater in a storm and whisper a thank you to the ocean, because it is older than scripture, and it has carried continents on its shoulders, and also move your house upland because you honor its power. You can trace with one finger the path of a constellation, and with the other trace the wiring of a lantern you built yourself. Reverence and readiness are not opposites, they are partners. We have spoken much of the sky, but there is a sky beneath the sea, and it has its own constellations. At night, when the tide goes slack and the bay lies like a mirror, plankton wake and paint your fingers with green fire. If you stir the water, fish write bright cursive with their tails. In those hours you can almost believe that the ocean is remembering every city it swallowed and lighting candles for them in its depths. Somewhere, under that dark silk, a paved road sleeps. A staircase kneels. A statue leans into silt with its eyes open. Time is not cruel there. It is patient. When the currents shift again, as they always do, some of these will rise to the light and new people will stand on a new shore and ask the same questions and tell the same story, with different names, different alphabets, different music in their voices. The chorus will be continuous. What of us? What can we leave that is both humble and sufficient? Leave a measure, a way to keep time that does not depend on clocks, a way to find north that does not depend on satellites. Teach it to someone you love, and write it down in words a child can read. Leave a kindness, a single practice of care that makes your place stronger, water conserved, soil tended, Neighbors who know one another's names when the street goes dark. Power fails easily. Community fails. Leave a song. It does not have to be beautiful. It has to be memorable. A melody can cross a desert when a machine cannot. A song can make frightened people breathe together, and a breath is the beginning of courage. Leave an invitation. Not a command, not a prophecy, not a threat. An invitation to look up tonight, not someday, and learn the names of 5 stars. To step outside on the solstice and feel the angle of the light on your skin. To walk to the edge of your city and put your palm to the oldest rock you can find. To sit with an elder and ask them about a storm they remember. To hand a child a compass and then close it and say, "Now find east by dawn." We do not get to choose the scale of the age into which we are born. We do get to choose the scale of our attention. A civilization is simply attention shared widely, sustained over time. We can give that to one another. We can keep the clock, not to stop it, not to hurry it, but to know where we stand when it strikes. And here is the gentlest truth in this heavy story. Even resets carry gifts. In the stillness after the flood, the sky is clean in a way no city child has ever seen. You can trace the backbone of the galaxy from horizon to horizon, and it looks close enough to touch. In the quiet after the fire, seeds that only open in heat crack and sprout, and the forest that grows wears colors no one remembers. In the hush, after the grid goes dark, people sit on stoops and porches they had forgotten they owned. And the stars, those precise, ancient, indifferent judges, come down like neighbors to visit. We do not need ruin to find these gifts. We can borrow them while the lights are still on, while the trains still run, while the phones still ring. Step outside. Let your pupils widen. Say the names: Vega, Altair, Deneb, Betelgeuse, and Rigil, and Tares, like a coal. Trace the triangle, trace the hunter, find the scorpion sinking. Imagine the line the Earth is drawing through this map, one slow circle, every 26 millennia. Imagine that our particular night, this exact breath, is a bead on that long string, not more important than any other, and yet utterly irreplaceable. Imagine the people thousands of years from now, who will stand under the same string of lights and think of us, the way we think of those who carved whales and lions into pillars, and then buried their work for safekeeping. What would you like them to know? What would you like them to say your name for? Perhaps nothing so grand as a monument. Perhaps only this: they kept a small garden alive through difficult years. They taught their neighborhood to watch the sky. They wrote a clear book about how to start again. We end where we began, with the image of a clock. Not a machine of brass, but a patient choreography of heat and gravity and dust. A music played on fields and tides. The hands are constellations. The bell is the wind in stone doorways, and the surf against drowned stairs, and the distant crack of ice carving into green water. The face is our own, reflected in whatever is left standing after each turn. If you are listening in the dark, waiting to sleep, let this be your lullaby. You live on a planet that knows how to begin again. It has done so many times, and will do so many times more. Your task is not to hold it still. Your task is to remember the steps, and teach them kindly to whoever wakes after you. The clock is turning, yes, but so are we. We can turn toward each other. We can turn toward the sky. We can turn toward the work that endures, and the songs that carry, and the maps that do not burn. We can turn, and in turning we can choose the manner of our aid. Somewhere under your feet is bedrock older than sorrow. Somewhere over your head is light that left its source before cities were dreamed. Between them, you are a brief and marvelous bridge. Hold, listen, learn the rhythm, pass it on, and sleep, if you can, with the window open to the stars. Because the night above you is the same night that watched our first fires, and will watch our last, for there are no last fires, only hearths handed forward along the long bright curve of time.